Hey y'all, this is Chef Megan with the Edible Schoolyard New Orleans. This is a special weekend edition of Cooking with Your Kids because two friends of mine, Ezra and Iris in Virginia, had a special request for a video on how to make cinnamon rolls. So we are going to do that because that would be a really great weekend project for all y'all to do with your kids. So there are three parts to making cinnamon rolls. We have to make the dough, we have to make the filling for the cinnamon rolls, and then we also have to make an icing. So this is a project. Not only is it a project, there is some wait time. After we make the dough, we have to wait for it to rise. Then we have to form it into our cinnamon rolls, and then we have to wait for it to rise again. Now, the good thing is that with that second rise, we can do that in the fridge. So I suggest that you start your project on a Saturday or a Friday, and then the morning that you want to eat your cinnamon rolls, you can finish it up. So I will tell you how to do that later, and let's get started. So looking at the dough part of our recipe, there are two things that need to be prepped. One, we need to melt 2 tablespoons of butter. So either an adult can do that, or if you have an older kid who can put that on the stove and watch it while it melts, that is great. Then the other thing is one of our favorite things, cracking an egg. So we're gonna crack it into a bowl or a little container. Remember that after you crack your egg, your hands might get some egg on it, so you want to make sure you go wash those before you go on with anything else. And then we're just gonna whisk it up or use a fork to beat it because our egg needs to be beaten. So get your butter melted, your egg cracked and beaten, and then we'll start working on our dough. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add a cup of warm water to a bowl. And we don't want that hot. We want it just barely warm because we are going to use that to wake up, remember, our little creatures, our yeast. And so if it's too hot, it's gonna kill our yeast. And if it's not warm, it's not gonna wake them up. So we're gonna do 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. Remember, that's the same as 1 package if that's how you have bought your yeast. So 2 teaspoons and 1/4. And we're gonna just use a whisk to stir that just very gently. And they're already starting to bubble a little bit. So remember, our little yeast creatures are going to eat the sugar and then they're going to toot so that our cinnamon rolls will rise. So it's pretty cool. We are gonna add 3 cups of flour. And remember, you can use your finger or a butter knife to level off your flour. So I'm going to use my finger, I think. So there's 1. 2. And 3. Alright, and I'm going to be making a mess today, I can tell already. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. Remember, the tablespoon is the biggest one. Oh my gosh, and be careful, I almost just did 2 tablespoons of salt, and those would not be delicious cinnamon rolls at all. So be careful. So 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then just half a teaspoon of salt. So that would have been really yucky if I had done 2 tablespoons when all I need is this much, half a teaspoon. So half a teaspoon of salt. We're gonna add that butter. Put that melted butter in. Scrape every little bit out. Okay, start mixing a little bit. And then we're gonna add our egg that we already whisked up. And try to get all that out too. And then we're just gonna stir this together until we get a dough. All right, so we have a pretty good dough going here. It's a little bit of a wet dough, so I'm gonna make sure we're gonna put flour down on our board, and then we're gonna use our spatula to scrape every little bit of dough onto that floured board. And don't worry, I'm gonna tilt my screen down in just a sec. Put that bowl aside, you're gonna need it again. All right, so you guys are pros at this part. So remember, you're gonna take your penguin fingers, keep those fingers straight and keep them stuck together, and we get to knead this dough. So make sure that you have a little flour on your hands, maybe a little flour on the dough. Like I said, it's a pretty wet dough, so we don't want to get a sticky mess going right away. We're just gonna start by pressing it a little bit first. Press it around, little bit more flour for good measure, and then we're just gonna do our kneading. So we're gonna press it down, we're gonna fold it, press it, fold, press, fold, press. Use both hands. We can sing while we do this, add a little more flour. We can take turns and we could say, knead, Chef Megan, knead, knead, Chef Megan, knead, Chef Megan, knead, knead, Chef Megan. Or if you have 2 or 3 little guys at home, we can cut this into pieces. Everyone can knead. So we're gonna wanna knead this probably for 5 to 8 minutes. And I did wanna say, we can do this in a mixer if you have like a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook. But if there's kids, we want to get our hands dirty, we want to knead. So it's up to you on that, but I'm going to knead this for about 5 to 8 minutes and we'll come back. All right, y'all, it's probably been about 8 minutes. I have a nice, pretty smooth ball of dough here. When I push it down, it doesn't stick to the table, so that's a good sign. So what we're gonna do now is use that same bowl, and this great job for little hands. Take a little chunk of butter, and we're just going to grease the bowl so that our dough does not stick in it. So when you have your butter all the way around, greased, we're gonna take our cinnamon roll dough, put it in here. We're gonna put either saran wrap or a towel over it, put it in a warm place, and we're gonna let it rise for 1 to 2 hours until this is double the size. So I'm gonna put that aside, and we are gonna work on our filling while we're waiting for this dough to rise. Alright, y'all, our dough is rising, so we're gonna work on our filling, but I wanted to show you, it's only been about half an hour. Look how big our dough is already. So we might be able to start shaping that just after like an hour, but we'll see. So our filling is just butter, salt, brown sugar, and cinnamon. And you want your butter to be softened. So that means that when you put a finger in it, it easily makes a little dent there. So we're gonna put our 4 tablespoons of butter that is softened in our bowl. Then we're gonna add 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar and light brown sugar. And remember, you wanna pack it down, and little hands can definitely help with that. Okay. And then 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. So for my older kids out there, I just want to use a 1/2 teaspoon. So for 1.5 teaspoons, we're going to do how many halves? Well, there's 1/2. 2 halves make a whole. And 3 halves equals 1.5. So we're done with that. And then just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So that's your next littlest one. All right, there we go. So I think that you could either start smushing this with a spatula and stir it around, But what I think I would do, especially since this butter is not that soft, is I think let's use our fingers. So let's take this brown sugar and smush it into the butter. And this will take a little while. It's gonna be messy once again, but that's okay. Maybe it's Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. We just take our time and have a good time with this. All right, here's how our filling looks, and using my hands was way easier than using a spatula, so I hope you did that too. I'm gonna go wash my hands, and I'll see you in probably an hour when our dough is ready rising. All right, y'all, it's been about an hour and a half, and our dough has definitely doubled in size. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 9 by 13 baking pan, and we're gonna let our little guys get some soft butter in their hands and just grease this pan. So you're gonna do the bottom and so our pan is greased, it's over there on the side, and we're just gonna put a little bit of flour on our board, and we're gonna dump our dough out onto the board. Okay, that looks great. Sprinkle a little bit of flour over it. There we go. And then we want to get this rolled out with a rolling pin. Remember, you can use like a bubble wand or a long plastic bottle if you have one. And we want to roll it out to 16 by 12 inch rectangle. So I'm looking here and it looks like, you know, my presidential ruler. So it looks like the my cutting board is about 16 inches wide. So I'm just gonna make sure it goes almost to the end there, and then 12 inches, so about here. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, but I'm gonna want it to be about this big, 16 by 12. So I'm gonna start rolling it out. You might be able to hear my dog Hank coming over here. He thinks he's gonna get something to eat because I'm cooking, but I don't think dogs like cinnamon rolls. What do you think? I don't know. All right. So this is pretty easy to roll out. You want to get it as much of a rectangle as possible, but it's not going to be exactly. And mine, it doesn't look like it's going to be exactly even either, but I think that's okay. You can also kind of use your fingers to flatten that out. Even if you don't have a rolling pin, I think using your fingers would be fine. So yeah, here we go. It's not a perfect rectangle, but it is about the right size. So what we're gonna do is we are going to take our filling that we made a little bit ago, and we're just gonna spoon it over. I was trying to decide if I wanted to do it with my hands or not, but let's just start by spooning it. Maybe just put a little bit in each spot evenly, and then we can go back with our fingers. So we have our filling. I might even put a little bit of flour on my hands so it doesn't stick as much. And we're just gonna try and spread this around, and you want to leave about half an inch around the edge. So if you're looking, let's see here, don't want it to go much further than that. It's like a crust on your pizza. So I'm gonna work on doing this. You guys can work on doing it too, and then I'll show you what we're gonna do. All right, so I think this is about as good as I'm gonna get it. You've heard me say before, it's okay if it's not perfect, and if there's one thing I've learned cooking with kids is that it's still gonna taste really good. It doesn't matter if it looks exactly how you expect it to. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna start on the short end, and we're gonna start rolling this up. So you wanna do it as closely as you can. And definitely get our little friend's hands in here. We're just gonna roll it up. And that's gonna make that cinnamon roll shape because we are gonna cut it across. So again, we're going from the short side. Here we go. and we want to make 12 cinnamon rolls. So I'm gonna take this and turn it so you guys can see it better. I'm also gonna pinch this a little bit. And so that was 12 inches wide, and if we want to make 12 cinnamon rolls, then we want it to be about an inch. And I have some extra on the end I might just cut off because there's not any filling in there, so it's not going to be that delicious of a cinnamon roll, right? So I'm going to cut this edge off and this edge. And then we're just going to kind of cut in half. In half again, and then each one of these should be cut into 3 cinnamon rolls that look like this. So we have our 12 cinnamon rolls like this in our grease pan, and we're going to place them in here. They do not need to touch because these are going to rise again. So if you want to go ahead and do all this today, we're going to let these rise again for probably about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But like I said, what I would do is I would take these, cover them in plastic wrap, put them in the fridge and let them rise overnight. And then tomorrow morning, when you wake up, take them out of the fridge and then let them rise for half an hour, 45 minutes. Then we can go on to the next step. All right, y'all, so maybe you woke up this morning and took your cinnamon rolls out of the fridge about 45 minutes ago, or maybe you just waited 45 minutes, but now our cinnamon rolls look like this, and they are ready to go in the oven. So your oven needs to be at 375, and these are gonna go in for about 20 minutes. So our cinnamon rolls are in the oven. It's almost time. We are gonna make our icing, and this is a cream cheese icing, so super delicious. It's my favorite kind. So we are going to do 2 cups of powdered sugar in a bowl. Again, you could use your stand mixer with the paddle attachment, which could be fun for kids too, actually, to like turn it on and watch it work. So if you want to do that, that's going to be easier. Or if we want to use, just use a bowl, we can do that too. So we have our 2 cups of powdered sugar. We have 4 ounces of cream cheese that has been softened. So hopefully as soon as you woke up this morning, you took that out of the fridge. And we're going to start with a fork, kind of smushing this together. And again, this can be a little more time consuming. It's going to be a little harder than doing it in the stand mixer, but it's up to you. This really allows kids to get involved. It's fun. It takes your mind off the fact that you're just waiting for cinnamon rolls to come out of the oven. And then we're also actually going to add a 1/4 cup of milk. Remember, you want to use your liquid measuring cup. It's more accurate. And bend down so you can see what you're doing, making sure it's level. We're gonna add a 1/4 cup of milk. Drizzle that around. And then we're just gonna work this together. And if you've ever made icing, you know it doesn't require much milk to a whole lot of powdered sugar. For some reason, it just sucks that liquid right up. So this is actually even easier than I thought it would be. So I'm just stirring it up. We're gonna get all that powdered sugar incorporated. No need for a mixer at all. And then our cinnamon rolls are almost done, y'all. I'm so excited. Okay, so finally these cinnamon rolls just came out of the oven. It did take about 20 minutes. I took them out when they're nice and golden brown on top. So if you want to do your icing now, it will spread a little more easily since the cinnamon rolls are warm. However, the pan's very hot, and I know you're probably working with little guys, so you might want to wait. Either way, just be careful. And then all you're gonna do is take spoonsful of this icing and just drizzle it on top. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. So I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope it is a weekend morning with your family and you can enjoy some cinnamon rolls hot out of the oven. Have a good one. I miss y'all.